On a warm summer evening, thousands of music fans were leaving the Ozfest Music Festival, which had just ended, in Tinley Park, Illinois. It created a gridlock of traffic from people leaving the concert and a vast captive audience for an extraordinary mystery. Here, the event that would be known as the Tinley Park Lights began. Suddenly, a formation of 3 large, silent, brightly illuminated red lights appeared in the night sky, moving with a purpose and precision that defied explanation. This event was witnessed by hundreds, maybe even thousands of people, and it marks the beginning of one of the most significant unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAP, or UFO if you're old school, cases of the 21st century. What would follow are multiple high-quality mass sightings that occurred repeatedly over a 2-year period. The witnesses are a diverse section of the public. People who are concert goers, people who are at block parties, and even a police officer. The events are documented with multiple photographs and video recordings. And despite all this, the Tinley Park Lights phenomenon has never had any conventional explanation. It's an unsolved mystery. Let's look into the unsolved mystery of the Tinley Park Lights. Let's get spooky. Hey, spooky people. It's your best friend Kenny here, and we are back with another spooky, disturbing story. Before we get to today's story, let's make sure that you are subscribed to this channel, The Spooky Lawyer. Please make sure that you like and share this video. Share this video with your favorite Ozzy Osbourne fan. Rest in peace, Ozzy. The beginning of the Tinley Park Lights phenomenon occurred on a clear Saturday evening. Thousands of people were leaving the 28,000-seat Ozfest concert at what was then called the Tweeter Center in Tinley Park, Illinois. There were also many residents that were outside, just enjoying the pleasant weather. At approximately 10 p.m., the first reports emerged. Eyewitnesses described seeing 3 bright, self-luminescent orbs, predominantly red or red-orange in color. One of the key witnesses was Bill Dooley, who was at his home near the Tinley Downs Shopping Center, watching a Chicago Bears preseason football game when his neighbor shouted for him to look outside. Dooley described seeing 3 bright lights coming at you in a single file. The objects remained visible. This observation, seeing them in a single file, was the first in a series of complex maneuvers that these lights have been described as doing. The objects remained visible for a decent amount of time, estimates ranging about 20 to 30 minutes. Reports were that they were completely and utterly silent. This was in contrast to the typical engine sounds of jets or airplanes that frequent Chicago's airports, and sounds that most people in the Chicagoland area knew. The lights, Dooley reported, hovered motionless in one place, apparently unaffected by the wind, before shifting their formation. They transitioned from an initial single file line into a vertically stacked configuration, and then rearranged themselves into a perfect rigid triangle. After maintaining this triangle for a period, they reportedly reverted to a stacked line, changed color to white, and then vanished from sight. Adding further to the mystery, some witnesses reported observing conventional aircraft, maybe even military jets, circling the area where the lights were present, suggesting the event may have attracted official attention. The flight characteristics reported by a large amount of independent witness of this first night present the challenge to a conventional explanation for what these things were. The combination of silent operation, prolonged hovering, and complex coordinated maneuvers is not consistent with any known conventional aircraft, which are neither silent nor capable of such static aerial movement. These behaviors also don't fit with explanations like flares, which are loud, do not hover, or have formation changes, or weather balloons, which aren't propelled and can't perform these types of maneuvers. These specific detailed descriptions from a bunch of different people on the very first night of the sightings is a strangeness that credible explanation has had difficulty addressing. As the memory of the strange night in August began to fade, the phenomenon returned, transforming the Tinley Park Lights from just a single event to a recurring mystery. On the evening of Halloween, October 31st, 2004, exactly 71 days later, the lights happened again. The timing of the second event was significant because it provided a larger and more diverse witness pool. Entire blocks of families were outdoors trick-or-treating, and many groups of parents and children reportedly stopped in the middle of the street to stare at the objects in the night sky. This second sighting is notable for producing the most crucial piece of physical evidence in this case, the video footage captured by resident T.J. Japcon. Japcon was at a neighborhood block party on Dorothy Lane when his 8-year-old son, Justin, spotted the lights and excitedly urged him to look up. Jepcon was stunned by what he saw, and he ran into his house to retrieve his Samsung camcorder and began filming. His footage is shaky, which is common with these types of, UFO aerial phenomenon recordings. But it became the cornerstone of all future investigations of the Tinley Park Lights. Jepcon said, "I was just in awe. You've never seen anything like it before. You know it's not a helicopter. You know it's not an airplane." Jepcon didn't have the only experience. It was shared with the community event. He described the objects as having traveled from the southwest to the northeast before stopping and hovering directly above them in their characteristic triangular pattern. He recalled the silence of the event, punctuated only by the sound of dogs barking. Jepcon recounted that a Tinley Park police officer in a marked squad car drove past the gathering. When neighbors flagged down the officer to ask about the lights, the officer reportedly confirmed that the police dispatch center was being inundated with calls about the phenomenon. The Tinley Park Lights did not stop with the 2 mass sightings in 2004. The phenomenon continued, with credible reports of the lights recurring on at least 2 more occasions, October 1st, 2005, and again on Halloween night, October 31st, 2006. This series of repeated appearances over the span of 2 years has cemented the Tinley Park Lights as a persistent, unsolved mystery. It was not a isolated incident. It became a regional, modern form of folklore, taking root in the Chicagoland area. The repeated nature of the sightings, particularly on Halloween, created a unique cultural dynamic and a cult following for the lights. The phenomenon became local legend, a topic of conversation and speculation that gave the area a certain notoriety. The growing story is reflected in the hard data collected by the national UAP reporting databases. An analysis of reports submitted to the National UFO Reporting Center and the Mutual UFO Network suggests between 2001 and 2015 that Tinley Park was a significant hotspot for sightings. The village logged 168 reports during this period, a figure that's described as unusually high and greater than totals for neighborhood suburbs such as Oak Lawn with 54, Orland Park with 52, and Oak Forest with 38. In fact, on a national scale, the Tinley Park sightings of October 2004 and October 2005 were ranked as 2 of the most reported UAP events in the United States during that era. The continued sightings in 2005 and 2006 illustrate the process through which an unexplained physical event evolves into modern folklore. The first 2004 sightings were unexpected occurrences. By the time the lights reappeared in subsequent years, the context had changed. The community was aware, and some residents were likely actively looking for reappearances of these lights. The heightened awareness does not invalidate their sightings, but adds a folklore dimension to the case. The Tinley Park Lights became an integral part of the town's identity, a shared experience that bonded residents who had witnessed the inexplicable. This deep social entrainment makes the phenomenon more difficult to dismiss as just an airplane or a weather balloon. It's not just an investigator analyzing a grainy video. They are dealing with the collective memory and communal narrative that has unfolded over several years. The investigation of the Tinley Park Lights requires an analysis of witness testimony and the physical evidence, primarily the photographs and videos captured during the sightings. The most consistent visual description is of 3 self-luminescent spherical orbs that were typically red or red-orange in color. However, some key witnesses provided more nuanced descriptions, noting that a spectrum of colors that shifted from amber to a vague yellowish green. There's debate about whether the phenomenon consisted of 3 independent objects flying in formation or a single massive solid craft. The witnesses are divided on this point. Some witnesses, like Bill Dooley, described the lights maneuvering as if they were separate entities, moving from a line to a stack before into a triangle, which would suggest 3 distinct objects. Many other witnesses have maintained that the lights always held a rigid triangular arrangement, leading them to believe the lights were markers on the corner of a much larger, dark, and unilluminated object. This description aligns with the classic black triangle UAP design, a recurring phenomenon in UFOlogy characterized by large, dark, triangular craft with lights at various points. The most detailed public analysis of this was conducted by the History Channel's UFO Hunters series. In 2008, the episode Invasion Illinois had a team of investigators applying forensic techniques to the available video evidence. By using GPS coordinates of the camera locations and triangulating the angles to the lights, they analyzed the object's movement relative to one another. Their conclusion was that the three lights moved in perfect unison, maintaining their space and orientation with a rigidity that solidly suggests they were fixed to a single solid structure. This lent weight to the black triangle hypothesis. Building on this, the UFO Hunters experts attempted to estimate the object's size. In one frame of the video footage, a conventional helicopter could be seen flying in the vicinity of the lights. Using the known dimensions of the helicopter as a reference point for scale, the investigators performed a photogrammetric analysis. The results were staggering. They estimated that the distance between the lights on the triangular object was approximately 1,500 feet. That would imply a craft with a width comparable to that of 6 Boeing 757 jetliners placed side by side, making it larger than any known aircraft in the public domain. These type of extraordinary claims require extraordinary analysis and extraordinary evidence. For the Tinley Park Lights, the leading skeptical theory, which has been most prominently articulated by an astronomer who's based in Evanston named Mark Hammergren, suggests that the phenomena was a clever prank involving road flares attached to weather balloons. Variations of this theme suggest the use of sky lanterns or a flare gun to create the illusion of strange lights in the sky. I think it's fair to say, though, that these explanations don't really account for the specific details provided by the vast majority of witnesses. The witnesses have consistently rejected the flare balloon hypothesis based on several key observations. First and foremost was the issue of sound. Witnesses described the event as completely silent, whereas road flares burn with a distinct and audible hissing or sputtering sound. The second is the object's behavior in the air. Witnesses reported the lights hovering motionless for extended periods of time and then moving in controlled paths, sometimes against the prevailing wind. This would be against how balloons work, which are unpowered and drift passively with the wind and flares and fall under the influence of gravity. The complex and coordinated maneuvers that were shifting from a line to a stack to a perfect stable triangle are beyond capabilities of a simple balloon and flare rig. TJ Japcon succinctly put it when he heard this theory, "Oh God, no." To test this theory, the UFO Hunters investigative team traveled to Illinois to conduct an experiment aimed at replicating the Tinley Park Lights using the very methods proposed by skeptics. They launched flares attached to balloons in the night sky. Witness Bill Dooley, who was present for the experiment, stated that the result looked very different from what he had seen in 2004. The show's image processing expert agreed, saying that the video evidence was not consistent with the balloon and flare theory and that the object, whatever it was, remained unidentified by conventional measures. Another explanation is that the object was a top-secret military aircraft, maybe a prototype like the rumored TR-3B Black Manta. This theory also has a lot of problems. UAP researcher David Marler, who is an expert on triangular UFOs, has argued that it is standard in military protocol to test advanced classified aircraft in remote, restricted locations, not overly dense populated metropolitan areas like suburban Chicago, where there would be a significant risk of people seeing it. Sam Maranto, who is a UFOologist, made a point that identical lights emerged from Melbourne, Australia shortly after the Tinley Park sightings, and that it's highly improbable that the United States government would risk an international incident by flying a highly classified experimental craft through the sovereign airspace of a close ally. The explanations offered for the Tinley Park Lights fail because they required a dismissal of the consistent, detailed aspects of the witness testimony. To accept these theories, you have to conclude that hundreds of independent witnesses were simultaneously and collectively wrong about multiple things, that they mistook a loud object for a silent one, a drifting object for a hovering and maneuvering one, and a random configuration for a precise geometric formation. This makes this simple explanation seem unlikely and makes the Tinley Park Lights a legitimate unsolved mystery. A group of civilian researchers and media organizations have documented and analyzed the Tinley Park Lights. This effort was to preserve the case details and bring the story to people. At the forefront of the effort is the Mutual UFO Network, the MUFON, a nationwide organization of civilian field investigators. Sam Maranto is the Illinois State Director of the MUFON, and he took a deep personal and professional interest in the case, becoming its most prominent investigator and public advocate. Maranto conducted numerous witness interviews, collected testimonial data, and served as the primary point of contact for media outlets covering the story. Over the years, he has consistently maintained in public forums and in interviews that the Tinley Park sightings were not a hoax and represent a genuine, anomalous phenomenon that defies conventional explanation. The media has played a vital role in shaping the public narrative of the Tinley Park Lights. Local news outlets have provided extensive and continuous coverage, publishing numerous articles that featured eyewitness events, expert interviews, and follow-up reports over many years. The local coverage has kept the story alive within the community, and the case eventually broke through to the national level, with major news organizations like NBC News featuring it in a 2008 Close Encounters report, and publications like Chicago Magazine reviewing the sightings. However, History Channel's UFO Hunters episode transformed the case from a local mystery into a nationally recognized UAP event. The show's team brought TJ Japcon's video to a massive audience, interviewed key witnesses like Japcon and Bill Dooley, conducted the experiments to test the flare and balloon theory, and performed the photogrammetric analysis that produced the stunning 1,500-foot estimate size. For the public, the UFO Hunters episode became the definitive account of the Tinley Park Lights. The history of the Tinley Park Lights investigation has a classic pattern that is seen in the study of UFO UAP sightings. When official institutions don't investigate these sightings, the vacuum is filled by an alliance of witnesses, civilian investigators, and the media. In this case, witnesses like Japcon and Dooley provided the raw foundational evidence in the form of their testimony and video. Investigators like Sam Moranto provide the organizational structure to collect and validate this data. Media outlets provide the platform needed to disseminate these findings to a broader audience and, in some cases, fund and conduct further analysis. This is how these stories begin and spread. One of the strangest aspects of the Tinley Park Lights case is the near total absence of an official response from any government or aviation authority. The official silence stands in contrast to the sheer scale of the events, which were witnessed by hundreds of people and generated significant public concern. Police departments in Tinley Park and the surrounding suburbs acknowledged receiving a high volume of calls. On the two primary sightings in 2004, authorities logged over 50 official reports. During the Halloween sighting, a police officer on patrol even confirmed to witnesses at a block party that the dispatch center had been flooded with calls regarding the lights. However, beyond this initial acknowledgement, local law enforcement agencies have offered no substantive investigation or explanation. At least one department informally suggested to the media that the lights were likely just weather balloons, a theory that has not been confirmed by any official inquiry, and as we discussed, is not supported by the witness testimony. The silence by the federal aviation authorities is even stranger. Tinley Park is situated in a high-traffic aerospace corridor. It's in close proximity to two of the nation's busiest airports, Chicago O'Hare and Midway International Airports. Aviation protocol would dictate that any large, unidentified, and slow-moving object operating in this airspace would be a matter of immediate concern for air traffic controllers. Yet, neither airport's control tower officially logged any unusual objects or radar returns on the events of the mass sightings. The FAA itself has never issued a specific statement or report regarding the Tinley Park incidents. The lack of an official explanation from authoritative bodies like the FAA creates a massive break in the interpretation of the event. On one hand, the absence of official evidence, and in this case, for example, radar data of a thing in the sky that was supposed to be up to 1,500 feet wide, is the case's greatest weakness from a scientific standpoint. Skeptics can argue that if a massive, solid object was truly flying over suburban Chicago, it would have been detected by multiple radar systems. And the fact that it was not supports the theory that the lights were not a solid craft, but something more simple, like flares or lanterns. On the other hand, some people might argue that the object's ability to remain undetected by conventional radar is in itself evidence that it's some technology that's non-conventional and advanced in nature. Or it could be a conspiracy, that the data does not exist because it has been classified and withheld by the public, which is often alleged in UFO UAP cases. Ultimately, since there has been no official comment, no official conclusion about the Tinley Park Lights, it leaves this open in the court of public opinion for people to speculate and keeps the mystery alive. UFO researchers have found that reports of triangular formations of lights similar to the ones involved in the Tinley Park Lights were made in various locations around the world within the same several-day window as the Tinley Park events. These corresponding sightings were reported from locations as different as British Columbia, Texas, Australia, and other parts of Canada. The pattern suggests that the phenomenon over Tinley Park may not have been an isolated local incident. incident, but rather one of a broader short-term wave of UAP activity. The Tinley Park case can be compared to a couple other known lights phenomena, the most famous one being the Phoenix Lights incident of March 13th, 1997. Both of these cases share core characteristics. They were mass sightings involving a large, silent, slow-moving object described as being V-shaped or triangular, witnessed by thousands of people across a wide area. A big difference lies in the official response. In the aftermath of the Phoenix Lights, the U.S. Air Force eventually issued an official explanation, claiming the lights were military fares dropped by an A-10 aircraft on a training exercise. While the explanation is controversial and is rejected by many witnesses, the fact remains that this official count happened. For the Tinley Park Lights, there has been no such official explanation by any federal or military agency. Another similar case is the Stevensville, Texas sighting of January 2008. Like the Tinley Park Lights, the Stevensville event involved mass sightings of a large silent object witnessed by credible individuals, including local law enforcement and a private pilot. The difference between the Tinley Park case and the Stevensville case is the existence of corroborating instrumental data. Through a Freedom of Information Act requests, investigators were able to obtain FAA radar data that appeared to show an unidentified object as well as flight paths of military F-16s that were seemingly sent to intercept it. This type of hard sensor data bridges the gap between eyewitnesses' testimony and physical reality. But this is missing in the Tinley Park Lights case. The cultural landscape surrounding UAP has undergone a seismic shift since the Tinley Park Lights first appeared. This shift began in December 2017 when the New York Times published a groundbreaking story revealing the existence of a secret Pentagon program, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or AATIP, dedicated to the study of UAP phenomena. The article was accompanied with declassified U.S. Navy video showing pilots encountered objects that demonstrated seemingly impossible flight characteristics. The official acknowledgement that UAP are real and a subject of serious national security concern has retroactively lent a new layer of credibility to historical cases like the Tinley Park Lights, which at first were easy for mainstream silence and media to ridicule or dismiss. Within this new context, the timing of the Tinley Park sightings relative to the most famous and newly declassified Navy encounters is significant. The second major mass sighting over Tinley Park occurred on Halloween night, October 31st, 2004, just a few days later. From approximately November 10th to November 16th, 2004, the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group was conducting training exercises off the coast of San Diego when it had its now legendary encounters with the anomalous Tic Tac UAP. UFO investigators are careful to state that there's no direct evidence linking these two distinct events, or just proximity in time. But that proximity in time is striking. It raises the possibility that a period of unusually high UAP activity was occurring across the United States in the autumn of 2004. This activity appeared to involve dramatically different types of phenomena. On one side of the country, a massive, slow-moving, silent triangular object was being witnessed by hundreds of civilians over a major suburb. On the other side, elite military pilots and advanced naval sensor systems were tracking small, hyper-agile, wingless objects that could outpace their most advanced fighter jets. Looking at these cases now, after the revelation that the government acknowledged UAP events, this case can be reinterpreted as a potential civilian counterpart to the officially acknowledged military UAP incident of the Nimitz encounters. This makes the Tinley Park Lights all the more important. It changes it from a local folklore story to a data point in understanding the scope of the UAP phenomena. And it takes the question, what were the Tinley Park Lights, and changes it to, were the events over Illinois and the Pacific Ocean related? The unsolved mystery of the Tinley Park Lights of 2004 to 2006 represent one of the most compelling UAP cases of the 21st century. It's a series of recurring mass sightings over a 2-year period with the existence of tangible video and photographic evidence and witness testimony, and the persistent failure of any explanations that account for the observational data and any official explanations. What these lights were is unknown. Whether they were 3 independent objects flying in perfect formation, a single massive triangular craft of unknown origin, or an incredible prank, it's a question that we don't know the answer to. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Were these UAPs or UFOs? Were these aliens? Was it a prank? Is this all just a bunch of nonsense? Let me know what you think. Make sure that you're subscribed to this channel, The Spooky Lawyer. Make sure that you click like and share this video. Follow me on Blue Sky, Twitter, and TikTok. My username is The Spooky Lawyer. If you like this video, leave a comment. telling me that. Or if there is a spooky or disturbing story you would like me to cover, leave me a comment about that. If you're feeling shy, you can send me an email. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a link in the description to buy me a coffee, so buy me a coffee. Or you can become a member of the channel. For the $1.99 tier, you can become a member of the channel and get access to exclusive content, including exclusive videos. I would appreciate you considering it. You also support me by clicking like, sharing, and continuing to watch my videos. And I appreciate you watching my videos. I truly do. And please stay spooky.